This guy turned black in a world where colors are everything. In this world, people's rank is based on their color, where those with vibrant colors are seen as heroes and those without color seen as scum. But due to his lack of color, he is turned away and even ostracized for not knowing his place. So when he was suddenly hit by an Avada Kedavra, he woke up while being held over a toxic waste of all inks mixed together by Zorro's evil cousin, who planned to sell Nero on the black market as an intelligent creature, is a very rare existence. At that moment, Kay had become what they feared the most, a black man. But this is just the beginning. The story began with the steady sound of an axe striking against a wall. Each blow grew heavier until a strange blue liquid began to drip from the cracks. A young boy, excited by his discovery, collected the substance into a small bottle. It was ink, a rare find. He smiled and thanked a small, dark creature named Nero for guiding him to it. As he stepped out from the dim hole where he had been searching, he wondered if bringing this back would finally make the pioneering corps accept him. Emerging into the light, he gazed at the city ahead, its center glowing with brilliant, shifting colors. In the bustling city, crowds had gathered to watch a group known as the colorists. Their bodies shimmered with vibrant hues, drawing admiration from everyone around. People whispered about how the colorists had defeated another giant creature that day. To them, these individuals were heroes, protectors of the shining city. As long as they existed, the city would remain safe. Far from that brightness, in the shadow district on the edge of the city, another group stood in line before a building. It was the testing site for the C-rank Pioneering Corps entrance exam, open to anyone possessing color. They dreamed of exploring the Blacklands and earning glory, but not everyone was welcome. The young boy, still clutching his bottle of ink, was thrown out before the exam even began. The guards told him to leave, reminding him once again that this was not a place for people like him. Frustrated, he shouted back, demanding to know why. He showed them the ink he had brought, insisting it proved his worth. A man with red hair stepped forward and asked if he really needed it spelled out for him. He was colorless. The word struck the boy like a blow. The man continued saying that everyone was born with their roles already decided, but sometimes fools who didn't know their place appeared out of nowhere. Flames rose from his hand as he warned the boy to listen carefully. People like him didn't belong there. The fire roared toward the boy, who flinched in fear. When he opened his eyes, the attack had missed him deliberately. The red-haired man smirked and told him that only the chosen could become pioneers. His companions demonstrated their powers, each ability more dazzling than the last. He explained that beyond the city lay the Blacklands, a realm swallowed by darkness, where monstrous creatures roamed unseen. Only those with strength and color could survive there. Pioneers risked their lives exploring the unknown, searching for resources and treasures to secure humanity's future. They were the true heroes of their age. The man told the boy that for someone colorless, becoming a pioneer was impossible. He ordered him to return to colorless work, stop showing up at their gates, and get lost. As the door slammed shut, he warned that if the boy annoyed him again, he wouldn't miss next time. He paused without saying a word. From his pocket, the small black creature emerged, trying to encourage him, but he told it quietly that it was fine. There were still many other places they could try. He was already used to rejection. Smiling faintly, he promised that one day he would become the greatest colorist ever. He pushed Nero back into his pocket. Though the creature resisted, the boy whispered for it to stay hidden. Someone might see them. Turning away, he said they should look elsewhere, somewhere that might actually take them in. From a nearby window, a strange man watched their exchange, a faint grin crossing his face. After hours of searching and being turned away from one place after another, the boy reviewed his list, crossing out another name. He sighed heavily. Another failed attempt. It couldn't be helped. Eventually, he arrived at Mari's workshop. She was another colorless like him. Seeing him at the door, she greeted him warmly, saying, "Welcome back. Judging by your face, it didn't go well again, did it?" He nodded silently. She smiled with gentle confidence and told him that people simply didn't recognize talent when they saw it. In her eyes, he was probably stronger than most pioneers already. He shrugged, saying that it didn't matter how skilled he was. No one would ever accept a colorless into the corps. Mari reminded him that despite everything, He still managed to return safely from the Blacklands every time his abilities were already proven. He corrected her softly, saying it was only possible because Nero always helped him. Then, changing the subject, he asked if she could buy the ink he'd found. She agreed happily, saying she'd pay him well for it. As she poured the ink into her energy device, she sighed of relief. Lately, it had been hard to get supplies. The boy commented that it was because the city kept pushing to increase the number of pioneers. Mari nodded, saying their entire livelihood depended on ink. She looked at him with concern. He was willing to work hard at anything, yet no core would take him in. Calling him Kay, she asked if he had thought about what she told him before. He admitted he hadn't. The place she mentioned seemed out of reach. Before he could finish, Mari placed a paper on the table in front of him. She said firmly, "You have to try everything. You never know how things might turn out. This could be your chance." He picked up the sheet and froze when he saw the name. Dawn Pioneering Corps, an S-rank unit. He had always assumed he'd fail if he tried there. Could his skills really be recognized at such a level? Mari told him it was a great opportunity, one based on ability. If he truly wanted acknowledgement, this might be the moment. She smiled and reminded him that he had wanted to be a colorist since they were kids. She'd always support him no matter what. Kay smiled back, saying he couldn't afford to hesitate any longer. He picked up the application sheet for the Dawn Corps and thanked her before leaving. Mary called after him, telling him to take care. Walking alone through the narrow alley, Kay studied the sheet again. Time was short. He needed to prepare quickly. Suddenly, Nero tensed in his pocket, alert to danger. He frowned, asking what was wrong. Before he could react, someone approached from behind. It was the same group of strange men who had been watching from the window. A sudden blast struck him in the back. The impact sent him crashing forward as a sharp pain tore through his body. He screamed before everything went black. Kay crashed to the ground, his body trembling from the force of the blast. One of the attackers laughed, saying he was lucky to have dodged it. Another, a man with green hair, replied coldly that it didn't matter. The boy would be dead soon anyway. No one cared if a colorless died. From his pocket, Nero darted out, crying as it tried to reach him. Kay's vision blurred, consciousness slipping away. With what little strength remained, he signaled the small creature to run. When Kay next opened his eyes, everything was dark. The air was thick with a stench of decay. He realized he was lying in a deep pit, a place reeking of danger. Above him, the green-haired man sneered, saying it was unfortunate for him to still be alive. He explained that this was an ink waste pit, a place where all kinds of inks mixed together, creating a deadly poison that dissolved anything human. He said it was perfect for disposing of unwanted bodies. Kay's voice cracked as he asked who they were and why they had attacked him. The man grinned, amused. He said they were just as surprised as he was. They hadn't expected to find such a treasure in the Shadow District. Turning his gaze to a nearby cage, he revealed Nero trapped inside. A creature intelligent enough to follow human commands, he said, was a true rarity, something that could fetch a huge price on the black market. Kay's heart sank. Rage burned through the weakness in his limbs as he shouted for Nero. He struggled to stand, calling the green-haired man a bastard and demanding he let go of his friend. The man mocked him, saying, "A colorless trying to be scary. That's pathetic," he said, grabbing Kay by the collar. "It's too good for someone like you to have a creature like this." Kay realized too late how careless he'd been. He had endured years of insults and discrimination, but losing Nero, his only family, was unbearable. His face twisted with anger. He growled, "Don't mess with me." The man suddenly froze. Darkness began to seep from Kay's hand, swirling like ink coming alive. A sharp pain shot through the green-haired man's body as he felt something pulling, as though the very life was being drained from him. Panicking, he threw Kay into the pit. "Disgusting," he muttered, backing away. Kay plummeted into the thick black liquid. Above, the two men laughed, saying it was over, all cleaned up. Now they said they were rich. Nero's cries echoed from the cage above, faint but desperate. Kay's body refused to move. He could still hear Nero's cries growing louder, echoing through the darkness. He wondered, was this really the end? After everything, would it end like this? No, he still had that promise. Suddenly, a voice echoed in his mind, cold and distant, inquiring, "Why are you just standing there? Why aren't you doing anything?" He couldn't respond, only gasp weakly. The voice grew louder. Will you just let it end like this? Save Nero. Take it all in. Don't hesitate. Accept it. Your true color. Now take it back. Your true color. Black energy surged around him, spiraling upward. He felt it flooding through his veins, merging with every part of him. He opened his eyes to find himself in a vast white void. A faint silhouette, a shadow of light stood before him. Looking at his hands, he whispered, "What is this? What's happening?" He realized he was inside the ink itself, surrounded by endless stillness. His memories blurred, he thought. "Who am I?" But then Nero's cry pierced through the silence, louder and louder, calling out to him. Lifting his head, he could see them again, the two men and Nero still trapped and crying. His heart burned with determination. He had to save Nero. He thrust his arm upward. The pit erupted. Every drop of ink exploded outward, flooding the area. The men screamed in shock as the black liquid vanished in an instant. From the pit, something massive began to rise, a form shrouded in pure darkness. The green-haired man stepped back, his face pale. He whispered, "No, no way. This can't be." A deep black hand rose from the pit and reached for them. Meanwhile, the chemical factory had been completely destroyed, and many people were gathered around, and many officers were stopping them from going further. And among them, an old man shouting says that he clearly saw what exactly happened here, and one officer is noting down his words. He says, "A huge black hand suddenly appeared and it destroyed this whole place." And the officer listening to him says, "Yes, yes." Then the old man says, "I'm sure it did. It ripped that whole area to shreds, I tell you." The old man added, "Are you even listening to me properly?" On the other side, a green-haired man is being taken away on a stretcher whose entire color had been sucked out from inside him, because of which he now looked like an old man. And some pioneers look at that pioneer. The red-haired pioneer says, "Fortunately, it seems these two are the only victims." The female pioneer says, "Yes, they're Beer Pioneer Corps members. Their reputation wasn't very good." She adds, "I just don't get it. What in the world happened for them to lose all their color?" The red-haired pioneer says, "Well, that's important too, but let's set it aside for now. We came all the way here because of the large creature that appeared in the city." Just then, an officer calls the pioneers and calls them, "Sir," and the two pioneers turn toward him. The officer politely says, "It's an honor to meet you. I'm the one in charge of the site. What brings such busy people to Shadow District?" Red Hair says, "No need to be so tense. We just received a request to investigate the creature. I'd like to see the scene myself. Can you show us around, officer?" The officer says, "Ah, yes, right this way." And the two pioneers enter the chemical factory and start investigating. Then Red Hair notices black color, which is black ink, and he touches it to check. The female pioneer is also investigating and looking at the surroundings and says, "There really are traces left by a creature. We have confirmed the locations of all recently reported large creatures, but for one to suddenly appear inside the city like this, even if it is an outer district, something's off inside the city. The only creatures we ever see are harmless small types, if a new variant has appeared." Red Hair says, "Let's not jump to conclusions just yet. More importantly, how are we supposed to track this thing? What a headache." On the other side, Kay is unconscious, and Nero is trying to wake him up. He climbs onto his face and wakes him, and Kay hears Nero's voice and suddenly wakes up. He says Nero's name, and seeing Nero safe, he becomes happy and asks him if he's okay. Then he sighed in relief and inquired, "What exactly happened?" "It was definitely because of those bastards when they dropped me into the ink." He begins remembering everything from a few moments ago, and his eyes widen. Then he looks at his hands to check if they are still completely covered in black ink, but he finds that his hands have become normal. Then he looks at his hair, which had now turned black, and he inquired, "How is something like this even possible? And why is it so dark here? I can't see anything." Just then, Nero starts running in a direction, and Kay tries to stop him. But Nero moves quickly, and then Nero starts changing into a different color, and his body begins glowing with white light. Because of his light, Kay can finally see that there are many black monsters around. Seeing them, Kay becomes extremely scared and says, "What is this place? This place is the Black Wasteland, a land surrounded by darkness, and this is the Black Forest area that only Brank pioneers and above can enter." And slowly, all those monsters start moving toward Kay. They're already gathering. He says, "Nero, let's get out of here now." He starts running with Nero. Then Nero notices something and warns Kay, because of which he dodges a monster's attack just in time. He barely escapes and says, "That was way too close." He thanks Nero and in the same way keeps dodging many monsters. Because of Nero's white light, he can see the monsters around him. Slowly, while avoiding them, he keeps moving forward, and Nero helps him. Then he feels something, and he inquires, "What is this feeling?" "My body feels amazing." Black energy starts gathering in his chest, and he realizes that even after running so long, he hasn't felt tired at all. He says, "I ran for so long, but I'm not tired at all, and I can move so much faster and more nimbly. My whole body is overflowing with power." Then Nero senses another monster attack and warns Kay quickly. The monster is extremely close, making it very difficult to dodge. When Kay turns back, the monster opens its jaw to eat him. Kay shuts his eyes, thinking he's going to die. The monster bites down on Kay's arm when he lifts it, but Kay feels almost nothing. Instead, the monster's teeth break. Seeing this, Kay is shocked. How can a monster's attack have no effect on his body? The monster runs away in fear, and Kay looks at his arm, which is completely fine. He says, "I was sure that would be a fatal wound." So, this is the power of a color. Then Nero appears in front of him, trying to tell him something. But suddenly, a huge monster appears before Kay, and when he sees it, he freezes. The monster is truly enormous. Its name is Cyclops. Seeing Cyclops in front of him, Kay's eyes widen, sweat falls from his forehead, and he becomes terrified. The monster attacks Kay. Kay thinks, "Why is a predator that only appears deep in the Black Forest here?" The Cyclops attack hits Kay directly, and he is dragged far away and falls. Nero gets scared something might have happened to Kay and rushes to him. Kay is still okay. He looks at the monster and thinks, even though the attack was extremely dangerous, he didn't feel anything. It felt like an ant bit him. He smiles and says, "It feels like I can win. I finally got a color I wanted so badly. Things will be different now. I don't have to run away anymore. I need to remember that sensation, that feeling back then." He activates his blacking power, and his whole body is filled with black energy. His eyes glow with white light. The monster roars and attacks Kay. Kay stands calmly, black and white energy rising from his body, glowing faintly in the darkness. He digs his feet into the ground and prepares a deadly punch to kill the monster. He jumps and with a single attack destroys the Cyclops, completely tearing its body apart. His attack is so powerful that it can even cut a mountain. Kay, in disbelief, looks at how he destroyed the Cyclops. His face shows no reaction. He remains suspended in the air, but then he sees something that makes him stop. He sees light. He sees many colors. His eyes widen. Before him is a beautiful, colorful world. Green everywhere. Clear blue sky, white clouds, mountains, and landscape. Seeing this scene, he is amazed. He thinks this place is so colorful, but then his black power begins disappearing. He is about to fall. Kay becomes confused and inquired, "Why is my power fading?" His hair turns white again. He looks down and screams loudly as he falls into the forest. Nero rushes to him to check if he's okay. Kay sees that his color is normal again. He has become colorless once more, and he says, "So the more I use my power, the more it gets used up." No. If this keeps up, Kay panics. If he loses his power, people will bully him again. They will look down on him. But then from inside him, a voice appears. Some entity says, "What are you doing? Your prey is right in front of you. Hurry up and devour it. The color right before your eyes. You don't want to die, do you? It's simple. Reach out your hand. Your hand." Kay's whole body becomes extremely weak. He keeps hearing the entity's voice. His eyes slowly start to close. His trembling hand reaches forward. He grabs the corpse, and suddenly black energy begins emerging from inside him. He starts absorbing all the colors around him. Nero watches in shock, his eyes wide. Black energy spreads throughout the whole forest. Kay absorbs every color around. A moment later, Kay becomes normal again, and his hair turns black once more. He breathes heavily, sweat dripping from his forehead. He leans against a rock and lets out a deep breath. Mari workshop is peacefully calm, until the chime of the doorbell breaks the silence. Mari turns her head to see a mysterious hooded figure stands in the doorway. Mari, the owner, greets the customer with her usual warm expression, saying, "Ah, welcome. What brings you here today? Do you have a special request?" But this time, something feels different. different. The visitor doesn't speak, doesn't move, just stands in silence, completely covered in a dark cloak. But then, the cloaked figure suddenly moves toward her. Mari in fear says, sir, don't you realize you look extremely suspicious right now? Mari steps back in panic, grabbing the nearest tool she can use as a weapon, shouting, Stop! If you come any closer, I'll blow you away! But the cloaked figure doesn't stop. He advances, slowly, silently, and said, Wah! And Mari in fear shouts, Stay back, you! The stranger pulls back his hood, revealing his face, and with a calm voice answers her panic. Calm down, Mari. Seriously, it's me. And suddenly the fear disappears, replaced by total confusion. Her eyes widen as reality hits her, inquiring, Kay, what happened to your appearance? When she knows what happened, Mari shaking with anger, gripping tools. She clenches her teeth, her entire body trembling, but this time it isn't fear, it's rage, and she shouts, I'm so pissed! I won't forgive those bastards! Furious, she raises her wrench like a war hammer, saying, They deserve to have their heads smashed with this hammer! She charges wildly, but Kay steps in just in time and says, It's fine, Mari, you've already gotten your revenge. Slowly, she lowers the wrench and exhales, saying, Yeah, you got a bit carried away. I was worried since we lost contact. Something like this never happens. Her anger softens into relief. Mari, smiling, saying, Still, I'm really glad you're safe. Kay says, Yeah, sorry for making you worry. But even with the danger past, something still bothers her. And she says, surviving after falling into the red magic, and even changing looks, it's just unbelievable. But Black, that group of creeps still won't forgive you, right? Not after what happened in Red Light? Kay shrugs casually, as if the topic is nothing more than a minor inconvenience. And he says, That's already in the past. What matters is that I got the chance to become a colorist. His confidence is firm, almost stubborn. But Mari isn't done worrying. He adds, I'll put off looking into other things for now. Let's stay on track to the plans of becoming an enrager, okay? Thanks for making sure I returned on time. And, well, alive, Mari. So could I borrow some clothes or spare gears? I promise I will return it later. She sighs, frustrated, saying, Again? How many times has this been? But she catches herself and forces a smile, saying, Still, consider it an investment in a future colorist. Her mood shifts in an instant, and she grabs his wrist and pulls him toward the workshop's back room, eyes sparkling with excitement, saying, Follow me! I happen to have the right items for you. They'll fit you perfectly. The next day, sunlight pours over a massive structure, a towering coliseum bustling with excitement, crowds climbing the stairs toward the arena. Kay arrives with the flow of people, heading inside for one of the biggest events of the year. Inside, the arena is packed, thousands of spectators filling every seat. One in nervous says, Wow, this is insane. I've never seen so many people. Another says, Don't panic, just act like you're used to it. The chatter rises as participants gather in groups. One participant says, Hey, don't blame them. It's natural to be nervous with such fierce competition. The guy smiles, saying, I never imagined the day would come when we'd take the test for the Dawn Pioneering Corps. We actually made it this far? Another participant replies, Yeah, that makes sense. Joining the colorist tournament is basically a dream for every aspiring colorist, isn't it? Then the tone shifts, as the conversation turns to the true stars of the city, and those silhouettes of powerful elites glowing with bright colors, who the ones making this tournament so important. As an early colors, they have multiple high-class colorists. They're literally called the Hope of Shining City. Then every eye turns toward the glowing figures, the elite colorists who represent the city's strength. And the green guy says the only problem is that many strong candidates have gathered here. One of them is this blue-haired girl and a tall man beside her, both radiating confidence. She is the second daughter of a traditional colorist family and a famous bounty hunter. And they aren't the only elites here. Even recent ranks, well-known rookies are here. But then, everyone's attention shifts to one figure. And one guy says, But still, the one attracting the most attention is that guy, right? At that moment, a green-haired swordsman walks through the crowd, his presence alone turning heads. He is Gale Sword Gale. He's basically guaranteed to pass. He's strong enough to handle S-ranked creatures alone. But overwhelming strength isn't the only thing he's known for. His cruel and and violent nature often causes trouble. And the worst part? That his mood swings keep everyone on edge. You never know what he's planning. And he was reportedly kicked out from his previous corps. Right on cue, Gale snaps back at the people gossiping behind him. Gale said, "Hey, why are you guys blabbering behind my back? Tell it to my face if you've got something to say." Another guy smirks, saying, "Try saying that in front of him." He laughs and says, "That's a bit much." The examination hall buzzed faintly with whispers, a restless tide of hopeful voices. Yet the man who entered, broad-shouldered, green-haired, and cloaked in authority, paid them no mind. His footsteps echoed with boredom rather than urgency, his expression twisted into a familiar mask of disdain. He swept his gaze across the gathered examinees, lips curling into a scoff, saying, "Ridiculous little brats." He had come expecting brilliance, raw, unpolished talent he could mold, perhaps even a prodigy or two. But what greeted him was mediocrity, a sea of faces blending into one dull shade. He muttered, rubbing the back of his neck as disappointment washed over him. Pathetic. Is this really all there is? How utterly disheartening. One by one, the candidates failed to catch his attention. He whispered to himself, exhaling a long, tired breath. There isn't a single standout, but then his eyes froze. Across the hall, a figure stood out like moonlight breaking through murky clouds. A girl. No, a presence. Her long blue hair flowed gently as she walked, each step radiating quiet confidence. She didn't try to stand out. She simply couldn't be ignored. He narrowed his eyes, saying, "Well, at least, maybe that girl." Her name surfaced in his memory, not a common one, and certainly not easy to forget. She carried a rumor, a whisper of potential that had once reached his ears. And now here she was, standing before him, like fate itself had brought her to this exam. His boredom melted away, replaced by intrigue, sharp and hungry. He murmured, leaning forward slightly as a grin spread across his face. "So, you really did show up? Good. Let's see if the rumors about you are worth my time." Then his hand moved forward to her, saying to himself, "I wonder how they will react." But suddenly, a sharp click echoed overhead. A mechanical voice boomed, "Ah, candidates, the entrance exam for the Dawn Pioneering Corps will begin now." Then the spotlight snapped onto a single figure walking in from the opposite side. A man with golden hair stepped forward. The crowd reacted instantly. Gasps, murmurs, even squeals of admiration. His very presence seemed to ignite the air, confidence radiating from him like sunlight. Someone whispered, "Wow, a cadet from the Dawn Pioneering Corps. He made a huge contribution during the recent large-scale creature hunt." Truly, the Corps had sent one of its finest. And if this was the level of the examiners, then this exam would be nothing short of brutal. Then, with a controlled breath, he lowered his tone, saying, "Welcome." The single word struck the hall like a bell. Conversations died instantly. Every candidate stood straighter, as though pulled upright by an invisible force. He stepped forward, saying, "First, I want you to think about the reason you applied to join the Dawn Pioneering Corps." He adds, "Everyone here came with the same goal and mission, whether it's for money, power, honor, or duty." He paused, his eyes sharpened, cutting through the silence like a blade, saying, "Honestly, it doesn't matter." He continued, "In the end, you need skill to achieve anything, and we only test the skilled. We've been facing creatures stronger and more dangerous than ever before. Some have pushed into human territory." A chill crept down the candidates' spines. He said quietly, "When good people aren't skilled enough, they die without drama." Nothing more needed to be said. The weight of the Corps' reality settled over the crowd like a suffocating blanket. He gestured outward, saying, "Look around, you'll have a good idea." Before them stretched a vast arena, hundreds of hopefuls standing in tightly packed groups, surrounded by towering walls and divided training platforms. It looked more like the opening of a battlefield than an exam. He announced, "Will be conducted in a tournament format. The first test will be conducted in a tournament format." Outside the city walls, survival depended on combat ability. Monsters lurked everywhere, and only the strong could return alive. At the Academy's evaluation grounds, the examiner called out to the gathered trainees, announcing that selections would be based solely on battle performance. He said, "Step forward when your number is called." Number 126 was summoned first. A green-haired student stepped onto the stage with calm confidence, drawing attention from the crowd. Whispers followed. His ranking was already mid-tier, even even at the start of the test, someone murmured. Poor whoever has to face him, the student smirked, saying, lucky me. Finally some fun from the start. I was dying of boredom earlier. Number 126 licked his lips, eyes gleaming with amusement as he studied his opponent, inquiring, how should I play with him? But when the cloaked figure stepped forward, 126 frowned. The opponent's stance was basic, almost sloppy. Nothing about him looked threatening. He said to himself, what's with this creepy guy? He looks weak. The green guy raised his blade and he muttered, mana flaring around his sword. I've been holding back for too long. Now that the stage is set, there's no reason to hold back. A burst of green energy erupted from his blade as he charged, confident the fight would end quickly. Murmurs rose from the crowd as number 126's mana surged, twin blades of wind forming around his sword. They said, that technique, Gale's sword? At his age? Unbelievable, he's a prodigy. The wind roared, swirling violently around him. Confidence lit his eyes as he pointed his blade toward the cloaked opponent. He said with smirk, ready? Try to block this. He charged, wind screaming around him. He moved forward, saying, if you can't, you'll be shredded. The cloaked figure didn't move, merely watched the incoming strike as green winds tore across the stage. He is only surprised, and wind howled through the air as a green glowing slash tore across the battlefield. But Kay gave him one hit. The green guy was hurled backward, smashing violently into the ground. Debris burst outward in a spray of dust and shattered earth. In the distance, several onlookers stared, frozen, shock twisted across their faces. Inquiring, what? Their eyes widened as the dust thinned, revealing a spider-webbed crater. At its center lay the battered green-haired figure, motionless. Gale! The name escaped in disbelief, trembling in the air as the scene held still. The green-haired fighter staggered, dropping to one knee. Dust and smoke curled around them as they struggled to stay upright. Their voice trembled with disbelief, saying, and that too, in one hit. How is this even possible? A short distance away, the black-haired man, Kay, lowered his raised hand, exhaling softly, saying, that startled me. His tone was calm, almost casual, despite the devastation behind him. Then one shouted, his eyes widened slightly. Wait, I'm not missing the mark at all? Inquiring, black. Black is the same color as creatures. A blonde observer stared at him, stunned. Another person beside them murmured, can a human even have that color? Snow swirled lightly as the black-haired man stood alone, the wind brushing past his cloak. He stared at his own hand as if assessing something unseen. While they inquiring, so Gale dropped? He was taken out in one hit. Is this all the power of the beast? Our boy looked around, asking himself, did I make a mistake? I think no. LOL. The tournament continues with intense battles. In one match, a terrified candidate launches sharp stones, but Kay charges forward, easily evading them. He closes the distance instantly and delivers a powerful punch, sending the magic user flying. The announcer declares him the winner. Kay's winning streak continues as he dominates violently, slamming another opponent and knocking out a third. High above, the blonde examiner watches with interest, declaring that Kay is the standout applicant. He excitedly notes that Kay is the first ever black holder and insists they must recruit him immediately before rumors spread. Suddenly, heavy footsteps approach, and a voice casually remarks that it looks like a tough day. The blonde examiner turns in surprise to see the red-haired man and blue-haired woman from the explosion site. The examiner asks why team leader Red is here, but the man waves his hand, claiming they are just passing by. They briefly discuss the investigation into the large creature incident. The Red leader sigh, admitting there has been no progress. He then asks if there are any worthy candidates. The examiner mentions the young lady from the Tien family and an extremely unique candidate. Suddenly, the Red leader's eyes widen as he senses something. He looks into the arena and spots Kay, immediately noticing the black energy. As the examiner praises Kay, the Red leader stares silently at the boy. The blue-haired woman whispers to her leader, asking if that kid is connected to their investigation. The Red leader confirms it is likely him. Internally, the Red leader concludes that a new color appearing right after the incident in the Shadow District is too big of a coincidence to ignore. He decides to keep a close watch on K for now. Unaware he is being observed, K looks at his clenched fist, smoking with dark energy. He is thrilled by his incredible power, realizing that becoming a pioneer is finally possible. However, he recalls the physical toll the transformation took and warns himself to be careful. He knows that if he overuses this power and loses his color mid-fight, he will be defenseless. A massive surge of freezing energy erupts from the arena, creating a wall of ice. Ellie Cayenne stands calmly amidst the cold mist. The announcer declares number 17 the winner, revealing she has encased her opponent in a solid block of ice. The spectators, including Kay, watch in awe, commenting that the Cayenne family's color is always impressive. As Ellie walks down the stairs, Kay watches her, wondering how anyone could defeat such overwhelming magic. Suddenly, Ellie stops as she passes Kay, staring directly at him with a sharp, curious gaze. Her blue eyes narrow suspiciously as she scrutinizes him. Without a word, she turns and continues walking, leaving Kay confused. The announcer says, "The first exam has concluded." The blonde examiner stands on the podium and thanks everyone for their hard work. He explains that since they are behind schedule, they will move straight to the next test. He instructs the failed candidates to leave, and they walk away dejectedly. The blonde examiner begins to announce the next test, but is interrupted by a hand on his shoulder. The red-haired man steps forward with a confident smile, taking over. He looks at the surviving candidates and declares that the second exam will be led personally by him. The candidates look up in shock, realizing who is standing before them. Colorist Red. He is one of the shining city's strongest colorists, famous for retaking the Black Lands. However, the candidates are terrified, recalling rumors that his destructive power is so intense that even allies hesitate to work with him, and that when he is in charge of an exam, no one ever passes. The blonde examiner looks worriedly at colorist Red, asking if he is sure, warning that the captain will scold him for changing the exam format. Red laughs it off, stating he gets nagged every day anyway. He announces that the test is simple and tells the crowd to just endure as his body erupts in massive flames. A giant wave of fire surges toward the terrified applicants, forming individual spherical barriers around each person, trapping them. The candidates panic as they are enveloped in intense heat. Red explains that he has recreated the environment of a certain region, noting it will get pretty hot. He illustrates that the Black Lands are full of extreme environments where humans can barely survive. He belittles the current test, claiming this heat is nothing more than a warm stove. With a serious expression, Red reiterates that if they endure, they pass. However, his eyes narrow coldly as he adds that anyone unable to withstand this heat never had the qualification to become a pioneer. Inside the fire spheres, the candidates are suffering. One man realizes he cannot scratch the barrier. While others scream in agony, they wonder in terror what kind of hellish place the Black Lands must be if this is considered mild. Watching from the side, the blonde examiner notes that despite rumors, Red's skills haven't dulled. He marvels at Red's incredible control, observing how he instantly covered so many people. He acknowledges that this power is what one expects from someone at the peak. Suddenly, a loud cracking sound cuts through the air. Red and his assistant look over as one of the fire barriers turns blue and fractures. A massive surge of ice energy explodes outward, shattering the fire sphere. Amidst the falling shards of ice, Ellie Cayenne stands tall, having broken free. Red looks at her, admitting that this is pretty good. He reflects that while the Cayenne family's power is a natural counter to fire, his own power is usually strong enough to overwhelm that advantage. Staring at the young woman, Red concludes she might actually deserve to be called a real prodigy. Red wonders about the other candidate they were interested in. Inside his fire sphere, Kay appears to be standing still. Red observes him, noting that unlike the girl, this boy isn't breaking through. He admits he didn't expect much from him. However, inside the barrier, Kay is panicking, screaming internally that he is in big trouble. He realizes he used too much of his color during the fight with the Gale sword. He looks at his hand in horror, noticing his black energy is leaking out and draining faster in the heat. Kay imagines a terrifying future where his power runs out. He knows if he is revealed to be colorless, he will likely be experimented on. Desperate, he frantically looks for a solution, wondering if he can absorb something to replenish his energy. He stares at the wall of intense fire. A realization hits him. Since the barrier is made of a color ability, he wonders if he can absorb it. He looks at his hand, admitting he doesn't know the limits of his absorption power. Deciding he has no time to think, he resolves to find out. He reaches out and touches the swirling wall of fire. Immediately, a violent reaction occurs, and Kay is shocked that direct absorption is working. The fire barrier begins to warp and twist, drawing the attention of nearby candidates. A massive vortex of black energy erupts from Kay, sucking the red flames into his hand. From the podium, Red and the blonde examiner stare down, stunned and unable to comprehend what they are seeing. Red breaks into a nervous sweat, forcing a smile as he remarks they have found a real lunatic. In the arena, Kay stands amidst the dissipating energy, looking terrifyingly powerful with red and black aura swirling around his hands. The entire arena falls into a heavy silence. However, internally, Kay is panicking again. He forces a smile, thinking this wasn't supposed to happen. He realizes with regret that he has accidentally stood out way too much. Ellie Cayenne stands frozen, questioning if she is hallucinating. As she stares at the young man enveloped in dark energy, she looks at Kay and wonders if black is even a color a human can possess. Recognizing this is something unprecedented, a sense of anxiety washes over her as she watches him. Memories of the pressure to be the best flash through her mind. She is forced to admit that Kay is undeniably strong. She realizes that even with her full power, she could not guarantee a win. As Kay walks away, Ellie thinks that there is something about him that cannot be explained by strength alone, asking herself what he actually is. She quickly shakes her head, trying to dismiss the disturbing thoughts. Colorist Red approaches Kay and casually wraps an arm around his shoulder, telling him, "Next time won't be like this." Red smiles, remarking that the black ability to suck everything in was wild, and he cannot hold back his curiosity. He guides Kay away, suggesting they have a private conversation to protect Kay's privacy while he satisfies his own questions. Kay, sweating nervously, asks about the exam status. Red assures him that with a power level like that, he obviously passes. Kay is stunned, realizing drawing so much attention worked in his favor. He is overcome with emotion, thinking he has finally achieved his dream of becoming a pioneer. Suddenly, the blonde examiner yells at Red for acting on his own. Red laughs it off, asking his colleague to overlook it, just this once. The examiner sighs and announces that despite the interruption, the exam will continue. He clarifies that number 17 Ellie has passed because she broke the barrier, but the other candidates will undergo an additional test. Ellie ignores the announcement, her gaze fixed on the dark tunnel where Red is leading Kay away. The scene shifts to an industrial setting. Red stands outside a car with Kay while the blue-haired investigator sits in the driver's seat. Red tells her to wait. Kay looks at his surroundings and his expression turns to pure shock. He stares at a massive landscape of rubble and destruction, realizing with horror that Red has brought him back to the exact location where he fell into the ink waste. Colorist Red looks over the devastated ruins, remarking that it is an ugly sight. He explains that a major incident occurred here, causing Kay to freeze. Red recounts that for the first time in history, 2 pioneers were found completely drained and colorless. He adds that eyewitnesses saw a massive creature at the site. Red turns sharply toward Kay, pointing out the suspicious timing. He notes that shortly after that creature appeared, Kay emerged as the first person to possess the color black, calling it a coincidence. His eyes glowing, Red analyzes Kay's power, describing it as an ability that absorbs other colors. Kay sweats nervously as Red stares him down, declaring, "This is a completely foreign ability." Internally, Kay panics, realizing Red suspected the connection from the start. He frantically wonders if he can run, but looking at the man's overwhelming aura, He realizes it is impossible to escape from a hero. Suddenly, Red laughs, breaking the tension. He waves his hand, admitting he was just testing Kay, but complains Kay's honest reaction took the fun out of it. Kay looks at him in confusion. Red clarifies that while his official job is to investigate the incident, he is personally more interested in Kay's unique ability. Red explains that color powers normally cannot mix at all. However, he observes that Kay's ability seems to ignore those rules. He recalls the second exam, pointing out that Kay clearly couldn't control his power. Then Kay stammers, trying to explain, but Red interrupts him. The colorist's body begins to glow with red energy, and he states that they need to run a test. Kay looks at him confused. Red extends his hand, explaining that he needs to understand how the ability works. He smiles confidently, challenging Kay to try absorbing his energy now. Kay panics and tries to refuse, warning Red it is too dangerous. Red simply laughs, telling the rookie he is far too early to be worrying about someone of his level. Kay falls silent, looking intense and nervous as Red commands him to stop talking and just try it. Black symbolizes the Black Lance, an ominous force that devours everything. Red thinks that leaving such a dangerous ability unchecked is unacceptable because it could shake the foundation of the Shining City. A dark secret crosses his mind. People do not know it yet, but humanoid creatures exist. He silently warns Kay that if he ever faces them or worse becomes one, the colorist might have to eliminate him. Kay sigh, sensing the terrifying pressure radiating from Red. Despite the intimidation, Kay agrees to the test. He grabs Red's wrist, nervously, asking for confirmation that if anything goes wrong, it won't be his fault. While dark energy rises from his body, the moment they touch, a shock wave of energy distorts the air. Kay gasps as red energy violently surges into his arm, contrasting with his own black aura. He realizes he has made a mistake. A massive explosion of fire erupts from the contact point, causing Kay to scream in agony. Inside the inferno, he shouts for Red to stop, admitting he cannot control the power and that it feels like molten lava is boiling inside him. In his vision, Red appears as a towering godlike silhouette of pure fire, reinforcing why he is a hero. Red stands calmly within the flames, observing. He notes that Kay's black energy is sucking in his power without rest, acting as if it is starving. He realizes that because Kay's power is immature, strong individuals can resist the absorption, but this ability would be instantly fatal to most ordinary people. As the flames swirl, Red's eyes narrow with deeper curiosity. He thinks what they saw during the exam cannot be the full extent of the ability. He decides he wants to know not just how Kay absorbs colors, but how those absorbed colors are used. The situation escalates as the energy between the two violently reacts. Red watches as the black energy from Kay's arm begins to warp and spike, mixing with the red aura. Suddenly, a massive explosion of red and black energy bursts outward. Red is pushed back by the blast. He stares in shock at the figure emerging from the smoke. Kay has partially transformed. The right side of his body is now encased in a jagged demonic armor of solidified red and black energy. Red grits his teeth, realizing this form is ominously familiar. As he looks at the monstrous clawed hand and glowing eye, Red admits to himself that he would believe he was looking at a creature. The resemblance confirms his suspicions, and he realizes with certainty that Kay was behind the incident where the other pioneers lost their colors. Kay struggles to maintain consciousness. Red decides that his priority is safety and resolves to put out the fire before Kay goes on a rampage. He summons a ball of flame, preparing to subdue Kay by force. However, Kay lets out a low growl, causing Red to pause as the boy seems to be fighting something else. The scene shifts to Kay's internal perspective, a pitch-black void filled with demanding red text. The voices of the power scream at him, demanding intense color and urging him to bring more. Kay gasps in the real world, distressed by these intrusive voices. The voices continue to tempt him, telling him it is wasteful to hold back back and urging him to take it. Kay mentally screams at the voices to shut up and stay still. With fierce determination, Kay's visible eye glows red. He rejects the temptation, ordering the power to shut up and stay crushed as he exerts his will over the chaotic energy. A shock wave blasts outward as he forcibly compresses the energy back down. The jagged armor dissipates, leaving Red with a look of genuine surprise. Kay is left panting heavily from the exertion. Red looks at him impressed and stunned, asking if the rookie actually managed to suppress that overwhelming power on his own. Kay is left panting, his heart racing. He thinks it is insane that he survived and frantically wonders why he went berserk. He glances up nervously, terrified he lost control in front of a colorist. Knowing he needs to understand his ability, he hesitantly approaches the older man. Red, however, looks delighted. He admits he was caught off guard because the power Kay absorbed was stronger than he expected, but he grins and declares the experiment a success because it was fun. He tells Kay that if he wants to achieve anything, he has to be willing to take risks. Red decides that is enough for the test, but then pauses, saying there is one more thing. He reminds Kay that he is the investigator assigned to the destruction incident at this very spot, and his duty is to find the culprit. With a calm but threatening smile, he points out that the person in front of him looks like a perfect suspect. Kay freezes, his face pale with panic. Red explains the gravity of the situation. He recalls how witnesses saw a massive shadow creature, warning Kay that more people are interested in this case than he thinks. He argues that once rumors about Kay's black ability spread, it will be easy for authorities to pin the blame on him. He gestures to the ruined industrial district, noting the damages will cost hundreds of millions. He adds that if the city leadership decides Kay is too dangerous, he could be banished or turned into a lab rat. Kay grits his teeth in frustration. Realizing he is trapped, he knows there is no way to prove his innocence. Suddenly, Red offers a lifeline. He suggests that if Kay agrees to come under his command, he might be able to do something. Without a second of hesitation, Kay bows at a 90-degree angle, loudly shouting that he puts himself in Red's care. Red tells him to listen to the full condition first. He clarifies he won't fix everything for free. In exchange, Kay will have to grant him a few favors. He asks if Kay thinks he can handle that. Kay forces a desperate, trembling smile. Internally, he screams that anything is better than owing millions or becoming a science experiment. He loudly agrees, promising to do absolutely anything Red needs. In the desolate wasteland, a small creature trembles in fear just moments before a massive wheel slams down, narrowly missing it as a heavy vehicle roars past. A large armored transport truck drives through the foggy, rugged terrain of the Blacklands. Inside, Kay looks out the window, thinking this is his first time traveling this far out and wondering if this is his first real step as a pioneer. Suddenly, his thoughts are interrupted by Gale, a green-haired man who glares at him, calling him black-haired one. Gale rudely tells Kay he is being distracting and orders him to shut up, though Kay hasn't said a word. Kay looks at him with a confused expression. Kay sits awkwardly in the transport bay. He thinks starting as a pioneer immediately was what he wanted, but the atmosphere is tense. He glances at the furious Gale and the silent Ellie Cyan, questioning if being on the same team is the right move. A flashback reveals a conversation from the day before. Red asks a surprised Kay if he is ready to join the exploration, explaining he needs him to go to a specific spot in the uncharted area. Seeing Kay's nervous expression, Red laughs and tells him not to worry. Red shows Kay a map, assuring him he won't be alone. He explains that new recruits who pass the exam will also be deployed to the area and that the official roadmap will be announced soon. Kay just needs to be at the location on time. Back in the present, Kay looks at his teammates, noting they were already on the truck. It is revealed that because Red's interference compromised the previous exam, the participants were given another chance. Many skilled individuals, including Gale, passed strict additional tests. Meanwhile, Ellie Cyan, the top-ranked rookie, joined Red's team at her own specific request. Gale stares at Kay with intense resentment, unable to believe he was humiliated by a fool. He thinks back to their fight, convinced he only lost because he let his guard down for a moment and vows it won't happen again. He threatens Kay, warning him to be ready once the exploration ends. He mutters that if Raven hadn't been behind him, Kay would already be dead. Ellie Cyan interrupts coldly, telling Gale to stop talking, mocking mocking him that he would probably fall in one hit again. Gale turns to her in fury, asking what she just said. Ellie dismisses him, stating that Gale is no match for Kay. Kay looks at Ellie with surprise and hope, thinking maybe she is someone he can relate to. However, Ellie turns her cold gaze to Kay, confusing him by mentioning a past agreement they supposedly made. She glares at him, stating that the loser needs to stay quiet and follow orders, leaving Kay bewildered. Kay stands awkwardly between the two hostile pioneers, feeling the pressure. He sighs, realizing the team dynamic will be difficult to manage. The scene shifts as the transport vehicle moves across the dark waters of the wasteland towards a distant facility. The vehicle arrives at a bustling loading dock with workers moving supplies. The group disembarks. Kay, Ellie, Gale, and the other recruits walk out into the forward base for the Dawn Pioneering Corps. Kay is in awe of the high level of activity, noting the S-rank Corps' exceptional supplies, something he didn't realize when he ventured into the Blacklands alone. Suddenly, a finger pokes Kay's cheek, startling him. He turns to see a smiling Marie, who cheerfully explains that since this is his first mission, she had to come along to support him. Marie opens her jacket, revealing Nero has tagged along. Kay holds the black cat, thanking Marie for taking care of him. She smiles warmly, saying Nero is family. She explains she got a great opportunity to join the exploration team as support staff, stating her skills are useful here. A loudspeaker announces it is assembly time. The crowd of pioneers stands in the gray wasteland as the announcement continues that they will soon enter the Blacklands. Kay hands Nero over to Mari, telling her to take care of him. Mari warns him not to do anything dangerous, and he smiles, telling her he will see her later. Mari hugs Nero, but the cat suddenly leaps out of her arms, startling her. She shouts Nero's name as the cat runs toward Kay and sinks into the shadow on the ground. Mari's eyes widen in shock at this unnatural movement. She stammers, trying to call out to Kay, confused. The group arrives at a dark, fortified cave entrance. At the front, a woman with bright orange hair and a white coat shouts for everyone to prepare, announcing a new recruit is about to enter the Blacklands. She yells that safety is the top priority. She warns that reconnaissance has reported unidentified dangerous creatures in Area 21, a very dangerous zone where an A-rank creature's body was found. Suddenly, a male pioneer runs up to the orange-haired woman, calling her Arancia. He nervously reports that the red team leader has brought the new recruits, but they have left their formation without permission. Arancia's eyes widen in shock, and she asks if it's true. The messenger confirms it, and Arancia sighs that guy is causing trouble again. The group secretly enters a dark canyon, moving away from the main army. Colorist Red reaches his hand into the shadows, leading the way. The small squad, consisting of Kay, Gale, Ellie, and Red, separates from the formation. Kay nervously asks the team leader if this is okay, pointing out that the main team is heading in a different direction. Red confirms that their destination is different. Kay looks back at Gale and Ellie, worried because the squad is all new recruits. Gale suddenly snaps, demanding to know why he and Ellie had to follow, shouting that he heard Red only intended to take Kay, and he feels insulted. Red smiles, his red aura flaring. He explains that his personal guidance isn't something just anyone can receive, so it wouldn't be fair if Kay was the only one to benefit. He assures the angry Gale that while he won't spoon-feed them, he also won't let them get seriously hurt. He cuts the conversation short, ordering them to move out. Kay's eyes widen as they encounter enemies. Deep inside a cavern, the group is surrounded by shadow creatures. While Red holds a lantern, Kay, Gale, and Ellie engage in a chaotic melee. A massive wolf-like beast lunges out of the darkness. Ellie Cayenne reacts instantly, her blue energy sword piercing through the creature's body. She lands gracefully, realizing this is the reality of the Blacklands. Surrounded by glowing eyes, she notes the suffocating environment and constant waves of monsters. Acknowledging it's different from training, she grips her sword, resolving to manage her strength carefully. carefully. Ellie glances over her shoulder thinking she needs to move more efficiently. She looks at Kay and tells herself she doesn't want to fall behind him. Meanwhile, Kay grips a shadow creature by the neck and brutally crushes it with his bare hand. Ellie Cayenne looks at Kay with total shock. She asks him why he is not using a dropper. Kay hesitates, recalling the entry exam, and admits that he doesn't have one. He explains they are too expensive and that he feels fine fighting without one, leaving Ellie staring in disbelief. Gale is flabbergasted, shouting it makes no sense for a pioneer to have never used one. A dropper is an essential tool for pioneers used to infuse weapons with color energy to fight creatures. To properly hunt these monsters, one must color them using a dropper. The group looks at Kay standing over the defeated enemies, and they question how he managed to defeat them bare-handed without the essential tool. Gale's hand trembles as he grips his own weapon. Realizing the gap in their abilities, he recalls the humiliation of the exam. Realizing he couldn't even scratch someone who wasn't using a dropper, Gale grits his teeth in frustration. He glares at Kay's back, swearing to himself that he will crush Kay with his own hands one day. As they continue deeper into the cave, Red leads the way with a lantern, while Gale follows, seething with anger. Red glances back at his squad with a smirk, thinking it is not bad to see two geniuses being motivated by a rookie. He smiles, believing things are only going to get more interesting. After some time, Kay stared into the vast, ruined expanse. Sweat beading on his brow, he said, "Incredible. I can't believe a place like this existed underground." Then a sharp voice cut through his awe, saying, "Stop whining and let's head toward the glowing spot over there." Kay spotted his companions, holding his lantern aloft in relief, and said, "Oh, you guys, thank goodness. I thought I got separated alone." Ellie glanced coolly at Gale, saying, "We wandered around too, because of this guy." Gale snapped back defensively, saying, "What? You were just as lost." Gale surveyed the massive ruins with frustration and inquired, "Anyway, what is this place? It's bigger than I expected," he added. "To think we'd find an ancient civilization down here. Was it called the Stella Fragment? How are we supposed to find it?" He threw his hands up. "We don't even know what it looks like." Kay agreed with him, and he get worried too. And he said to himself, "Well, you aren't wrong. If we search blindly, it will take forever." Then he remembered Nero, and he said, "If only Nero were here." At that moment, Kay was startled by a familiar sound. Nero, his cat-like companion, materialized from his shadow. Kay asked in a whisper, "Nero, how are you even here?" Ellie noticed them, her eyes widening slightly, and she inquired, "A creature?" Kay looked back nervously, unsure how to explain his unique companion. Then a confident idea struck him, and he said, "Hey, come here for a minute," he said, a grin forming. "I've got a way to find the Stella Fragment easily." After that, he explained his plan to them. Gale looked skeptical, inquiring, "So basically, that little creature is going to lead us to the fragment?" Kay nodded confidently, saying, "Yeah, I'm sure it'll find it in no time." Gale scoffed, unconvinced. "Don't talk nonsense. If a rare creature like that existed, no way I wouldn't know." As Ellie held Nero, Kay sighed, annoyed, saying, "Forget it. It's faster just to show you. Nero, let's go. Let's show this idiot just how amazing you are." Nero zipped from Ellie's hands, spinning in the air and releasing a brilliant flash of guiding light. Gale and Ellie stared in shock. Then Nero led the way, illuminating his surroundings. Gale stammered, saying, "No way. A creature that follows people and has a special ability?" He watched the glowing creature float away, completely baffled. He added, "I've never even heard of something like that. Where did he even find it?" Kay followed Nero's light, and he said, "Nero says the stellar fragment is right here. You can feel it," as Nero chirped in confirmation. Kay gave a small, rare smile, saying, "I'm counting on you." Nero's eyes narrowed with determination in the darkness. Then Nero felt something, and he flew quickly in that direction. Kay inquired, "Did it find something?" When Key arrived, he wondered. "Over there, huh? How much deeper do we have to go?" Nero zipped ahead, leading them towards a dark, arched doorway set into a massive wall of ruins. Giles smirked at Kay's caution, inquiring, "What are you hesitating for? If you're scared, fall back." Kay shot back, annoyed, saying, "Who said I'm scared?" He added, "Then we're going in." The group steeled themselves and stepped through the doorway, entering a vast, sterile corridor lined with numbered doors. Ellie looked around the massive chamber in awe, saying it's more spacious than I expected. Kay also inquired what was this place used for. But suddenly, Nero's light veered sharply toward another door. Kay smiled and said, more importantly, Nero turned in a new direction. It must have found something. Before they could react, a colossal metal foot slammed down in front of them with a deafening crash, shaking the entire chamber. Kay was shocked. While Kay trembled with fear, Giles' hand instinctively reached for his sword, and he said, "Yeah, it definitely found something," he said in shock as a massive automaton whirred to life. "What is this?" Kay stared at the steam-powered golem, inquiring, "A creature? No, it looks different." He yelled as it stood to its full, intimidating height, and a beam of light scanned Allie, then Gale, displaying hex codes. Kay realized what was happening, and he inquired, "Hex code scan? It's checking our colors?" Then the beam locked onto Kay, a bead of sweat tracing down his face. The scan returned a stark, ominous code, pure black. The golem's single eye glowed menacingly. A mechanical voice boned, detected the color of the Black Witch. Identified as a threat, beginning elimination. In a flash, the golem attacked. Ellie screamed, "Kay!" as Kay was blown back. He said angrily, "You little, are you insane? Attacking out of nowhere!" Kay slammed his fists on the ground in fury, saying, "Whatever you are, attacking first means you'd better be ready to get smashed!" He roared as his companions prepared for battle. He threw a punch, but his fist met unyielding metal. Kay felt some pain, and he said, "Why is it this tough? Seriously, what is this thing?" The golem raised its own massive fist, unfazed. Ellie and Gale unleashed their own powerful attacks, but the energy simply sparked and dissipated against the automaton's armored hide, leaving it completely unscathed. Ellie couldn't believe what had happened, and she said to herself, "Even using color power doesn't leave a scratch. Is it because it's not a creature? My power isn't working well?" But she realized something might be the weak point. It was that core. Kay also attacked it, but the golem relentlessly pressed its attack, forcing Kay back. Kay cursed under his breath, saying, "Damn it! Ordinary attacks don't affect me! What should I do?" But then he suddenly remembered his black power and said, "Perhaps if I use that power, the attack might succeed." But that power absorbs a lot of color, so Kay decided to gather it only in his hand. Black energy swirled around Kay's fist. With a furious roar, he drove it forward, smashing directly through the golem's chest in a devastating explosion of metal and power. The automaton's head clattered to the floor, its light extinguished. Kay stood over the wreckage, breathing heavily, saying, "That thing was more annoying than I expected." Spotting the machine's spherical core among the debris, Kay picked it up with a grin, saying, "Oh, is this the core? Mari will like this if I take it to her." Giles stomped over, furious, saying, "Kay, what was that power? If you could do that, why didn't you use it earlier?" Ellie also said in anger, "I thought your ability only absorbed things. Explain it properly." Kay just stared at Gale and asked, "How are you even demanding this?" As Kay began to explain, saying, "That technique drains color so badly I didn't want to use it." A heavy stone door behind them rumbled and slid open on its own. Everyone turned their gaze towards the door. The newly revealed passage was pitch black. Nero darted towards it, chirping excitedly, before stopping short at the threshold. The creature hovered nervously, letting out a frightened cry. Kay asked, peering into the oppressive darkness, "Nero, what's wrong? Is there something over there?" Cautiously, Kay approached the strange, rippling black veil in the doorway, saying, "I don't see anything." He wondered, is this like the curtain from before? Reaching out a hand. The moment his fingers touched the surface, dark tendrils erupted, grabbing him and his companions. They cried, "What? It's pulling us in!" They yelled in panic. Gale cursed as they were dragged into the void. "Damn it! Why'd you touch that?" Ellie cried out. "Everyone, be careful!" Their screams echoed as the portal consumed them. They landed in absolute darkness. Gale complained, saying, "Ugh, that hurts." "What now?" Ellie said. "It's so dark, I can't see anything." Kay's voice called out, "Is everyone okay?" Gale looked at his hands, then gasped in horror, his body trembling, inquiring, "What?" My color is gone." In the dim light, he and Ellie saw that they were both completely devoid of color, rendered in monochrome. Gale screamed in terror. "What the hell happened?"